Hi guys, welcome to another Relive the Music video. So this one is all about the year 2009. So coming up later on, I'll be talking about albums such as Feel the Steel by Steel Panther and also Chutzpah by the Wildhearts. And in the gig front, I'll be talking about the AC/DC gig at Hampden Park in Glasgow. But to set the scene, firstly, I'll take you through some of the news stories from 2009, some of the popular TV and film, the top 3 songs in the UK, the album releases, and then I'll talk about the gigs. So my name's Ricky and you're watching Relive the Music. On January 15th, US Airways Flight 1549 was a regular scheduled US Airways flight from New York to Charlotte and Seattle, but shortly after takeoff the plane struck a flock of birds and it lost all engine power. So the 2 pilots, who were Chesley Sullenberger and Jeffrey Skiles, decided to glide the plane to ditching on the Hudson River near Manhattan. All 155 people on board were rescued by near boats. There were no fatalities at all, although 100 people were injured. The time from the bird strike to the ditching was less than 4 minutes. The then Governor of New York State, David Paterson, called the incident a miracle in the Hudson. The first inauguration of Barack Obama as the 44th President of the United States of America took place. This was widely celebrated at the time because he was the first ever African American to become president. We also had a pandemic declared, and that was swine flu. So this was meant to come from pigs, and the first case originated in Mexico. And this actually claimed the lives of about 300,000 people worldwide. However, it was declared as being over by August 2010. So thankfully we wouldn't see another one of these pandemics for a wee while. COVID, anyone? Okay, now to some deaths in 2009. So probably one of the first reality TV stars, if you want to call it that, was Jade Goody of Big Brother. And she passed away aged 27 following a long-term illness. Also, one of the former singers of Boyzone, Stephen Gately, he died aged 33. We also had Patrick Swayze, who was probably most famously known for his role in Dirty Dancing. He died of pancreatic cancer, aged 57. And probably the most famous of all from this year was Michael Jackson, the king of pop, dying at the age of 50. Okay, in the US, the New York Yankees won their 27th World Series by beating the Philadelphia Phillies 4-2. And in basketball, the Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA championship by beating the Orlando Magic by 4-1 in the series. And Kobe Bryant was the finals MVP. And lastly, in the Super Bowl, the Pittsburgh Steelers won their 6th championship, beating the Arizona Cardinals 27-23. And the halftime show that year was by Bruce Springsteen. Okay, so now to the TV of 2009. So first up, Britain's Got Talent Series 3. So this was the year that Susan Boyle, or Subo, would come to fame. So she was a Scottish singer aged 48, although tough paper round, man, 48, looking like that. Anyway, she was kind of hotly tipped after the first few shows to go on and win it, but she didn't. It was won by dance group Diversity, which was fronted by Ashley Banjo. Okay, this was also the year that popular TV quiz show The Chase was launched, and it's still going strong to this date, and it's had over 2,500 episodes. So I'm a big fan of this. I try and watch this in the house whenever I can. It's normally on between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So basically you have a team of 4 contestants who are pitted against one of 6 chasers. So they've basically to answer general knowledge questions. They've got 60 seconds to answer questions, and each correct answer puts £1,000 into the prize pot. And then once the minute's up, the chaser gives them options so they can basically stick with what they've earned, and they get like a buffer of getting 2 wrong before they would get eliminated. Or they could go for a higher offer, which means they're only afforded 1 wrong answer. Or they can go for a lower offer, which means they can afford to get 3 wrong. And then at the end, once all 4 people have gone, the team play collectively against the chaser to try and win the amount of money, and that's divided by however many people are in the chase. And say there's 3 people that qualify for the final, they get a head start of 3 on the chaser. But to be honest, I don't think it's much of a head start, because the contestants need to buzz in and Bradley Walsh has to say their name, which all takes time, and they get penalised if somebody buzzes in and someone else answers it, whereas the chaser can just continue to answer questions. But anyway, that's just my takes on it. But I do like it as a game show, and it's one that I've actually applied to be on over a year ago, but I've not heard anything back yet. So you never know. Watch this space. Okay, so now to the top earning movies of 2009. So coming in at third place was Ice Age 3: Dawn of the Dinosaurs. So this was the third instalment in the Ice Age film series, and in this one you've got Manny and Ellie are preparing for their baby, and Sid the Sloth is kidnapped by a female Tyrannosaurus after stealing her eggs, leading the rest of the herd to rescue him in a tropical lost world inhabited by dinosaurs underneath the ice. Okay, the second best earning film of the year was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. So the storyline follows Harry's 6th year at Hogwarts as he receives a mysterious textbook. He falls in love and he attempts to retrieve a memory that holds the key to Lord Voldemort's downfall. Okay, and the best-selling film of 2009 was featuring these blue creatures. And no, I'm not talking about the Smurfs. This was Avatar. So this grossed 2.7 billion worldwide, making it the highest grossing film of all time up until Avengers Endgame in 2019. But due to a re-release, Avatar retook that title in 2021. So it's basically a science fiction film, co-produced, co-edited, written and directed by James Cameron. It's to do with humans colonising a planet called Pandora and threatening the existence of the Navi, who's a humanoid species indigenous to Pandora. So I do remember going to see this at the IMAX cinema in Glasgow at the time, and it did look good with special effects, but I've never seen it again. I've only seen it that once. Okay, other notable releases in 2009 included the film Taken, starring Liam Neeson. And basically, he's a former CIA operative whose daughter is kidnapped, and he uses his skills to try and track down the kidnappers and get his daughter back. Okay, another film which I liked from this year was called The Wrestler, starring Mickey Rourke. So it's basically as if he was a retired professional wrestler struggling to stay relevant, and explores the themes of aging, redemption, and the sacrifices that he makes for his profession. Okay, and one other film which I saw which I thought was really funny was The Hangover. So this was an American comedy film featuring Bradley Cooper, Ed Helms and Zach Galifianakis. And basically it's guys out in Las Vegas on a stag do, and they wake up and they've no memory of what's happened, and they're trying to get the stag to his wedding in time. It's really funny, and it spawned a couple of follow-up films. Okay, so now to the top 3 selling songs in the UK in 2009. So third up was Lady Gaga featuring Colby O'Donis, and this was the song Just Dance. Second best selling song was the Black Eyed Peas with I Got a Feeling, and that was number 1 for 5 weeks. I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night. Okay, and the best-selling song in the UK in 2009 was Lady Gaga with Poker Face. Pa 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 poker face, pa pa poker face. Okay, also a special mention though to Rage Against the Machine, who had the Christmas number 1 with Killing in the Name, believe it or not. So this was a result of an online campaign. Basically, the public were sick and tired of Britain's Got Talent and X Factor people releasing their single and everybody buying it and that being number 1. So they basically urged everybody to go and buy Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name, and basically the sales did it for them, and that was number 1. Only thing being is they couldn't really get much airplay of it because of all the swearing at the end of the song. Okay, so now to the albums of 2009, and first up with her second album was Lily Allen with It's Not Me, It's You. And this had 12 songs on it, and personally I don't think it was as catchy as her debut album, but there were some good songs on it, such as the lead single, which was The Fear, and also Fuck You, which was about George W. Bush. And probably my most favourite song off of this album is the one called It's Not Fair. And it's got some funny lyrics on it. So the chorus bit is, there's just one thing that's getting in the way. When we go up to bed, you're just no good. It's such a shame. I look into your eyes. I want to get to know you. And then you make this noise and it's apparent it's all over. Obviously, I'm not really singing it very well in tune, but the lyrics are quite funny in it. Okay, so now to the debut album by Steel Panther, which was Feel the Steel. And I actually just saw them not long ago in concert, and I did a review video, and they were celebrating the 15th anniversary of this album. So I think this is great. I remember when I first heard about Steel Panther, and I thought it was a bit like Spinal Tap, I thought they were like a joke of a band, but it wasn't until I actually listened to the album that I thought, wow, there's some actually really good guitar stuff on this. And the lyrics from the songs, they are like well written in terms of like the cleverness of it. Like, it is really funny, obviously pretty shocking, but if you're thick skinned like me, then it doesn't affect you. But some really good songs on this album. So obviously you've got Death to All But Metal. I think that was maybe the first one that I saw the video in it, and Corey Taylor sings in that. And you've also got songs like Community Property, Asian Hooker, Eating Ain't Cheating, Party All Day, Fuck All Night, which is an appearance by Justin Hawkins in it. And one of the favourite tracks from me, which was in their 2003 EP, was Fat Girl. Just the lyrics in that are just so comical. So it goes, I know you're hungry, I can see it in your eyes, 'cause you're looking at me like I'm a side of fries. I wanna take your chubby ass back to my place and squirt my baby gravy all over your face. Whoa, whoa. Canadian rock band Billy Talent released their third album called Billy Talent 3, and this had 11 songs on it. So the tracks that I liked from this were Rusted from the Rain, and I think I've got a clip of that in my channel from when I saw them last year. And unfortunately, one which they didn't play, which is probably my favourite song, is Diamond on a Landmine. I think that's really catchy. Five Finger Death Punch released their second album called War Is the Answer, and it had 13 songs on it. So there was a lot of good tracks on there. I thought this was a good follow-up album. So the likes of Hard to See, Bulletproof and Burn It Down had that kind of aggressiveness that you came associated with the first album. But it's actually a slower one. It's probably my favourite one off of this album, and that was Bad Company, which was a cover of the song by Bad Company. Okay, Biffy Clyro gave us their fifth album called Only Revolutions, which had 12 tracks on it. And I actually liked this album so much I did go and buy the CD version of it. And just the way it starts, there's like a lot of good catchy songs on it. So I think the opener's The Captain, and it starts off with a dee 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 dee. Angels fall to the floor like they would if I was captain. And then the second song on it, That Golden Rule, I first heard that because I used to watch the Super League Rugby, and they used the second half of that song on the theme tune, the instrumental part. And yeah, that's a really good song. And then you've got Born on a Horse, God and Satan, and then you've got the catchy Bubbles with the chorus, there's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl, and she's down by the river. And the other one that's really catchy as well was Mountains. Okay, so the last album I'll talk about from 2009 was by one of my favourite bands. I'm wearing the t-shirt, the Wildhearts, and the album was called Chutzpah. I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. So this was the last album to feature bassist Scott Sorry, and he actually sings on two of these songs. and the one that was the only single from the album that was released, which was The Only One. And he sings on Plastic Jesus as well, which I think is a really catchy song. It's one of my favourite songs off of the album. So I'm not quite sure where I rank this album in terms of like my favourite Wildhearts albums. I think you go some to try and beat Earth versus the Wildhearts, and then probably Fuck behind that. So it's probably my third, maybe the second. I mean, there's some really good catchy songs on it. There's not a real lot of like hard rock songs on it if you want. There is quite a lot of more laid back, like Ginger type stuff on it. So you've got the likes of You Took the Sunshine from New York. That's a really good laid back song. And then another one which I really like is Mazel Tov Cocktail, with a good sing-along chorus with the giving it a whoa, and the crowd's all singing along. So I've got that actually on my video from earlier in the year.
I'll let you sing along to this one because it's really easy. There's only two words. The first word is war and the second word is war. Hard to get wrong. Let's see how it goes.
When I saw the Wildhearts, so some really good Wildhearts footage. I've got about 6 or 7 songs, I think, from seeing them this year. So yeah, really enjoyed that album, and the opener as well, the Jackson Whites, that was really catchy as well. Okay folks, so now to the gigs of 2009 that I went to. So when I went through these one by one, when I was researching these, I did actually manage to find footage for most of the gigs, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it in between each gig that I talk about. That way, if it doesn't make it past copyright, I can just simply take it out. So hopefully you enjoy it. Some of the copies are a bit better than others, but it lets you see what the band looks like, and it will also give you a wee flavour for like the crowd atmosphere. Okay, so the first gig I went to was Lily Allen at the O2 Academy, and this was on the It's Not Me, It's You tour, obviously promoting the album which she had out, which I talked about in the album section. So she actually played 18 songs in total, and she did all 12 off of this album, and she also did a couple of covers. She did a cover of the Kasabians' Oh My God, which she would later go on to release with Mark Ronson. And she finished on Britney Spears' cover of Womanizer. So yeah, it was pretty good. She put on a good show and sounded really good live. Okay, next up was my Welsh friends. No, not Bullet or Lost Prophets, but Funeral for a Friend. And that was at the QM Union, so I hadn't been there for a wee while. So this was good. They played 15 songs across a few of their different albums. Although, in saying that, probably the standout tracks for me were still the stuff off of Casually Depressed, and that was Do You Know, Red is the New Black, and Escape Artists Never Die. I did enjoy the sing-along of Into Oblivion though. Okay, next up I saw Prong at the Cat House, and that was 11 quid to get in. So this was a first for me. So it was me that wanted to go and see them. So I'd first heard about them when I heard a song, Another Worldly Device, which was on a Kerrang album at the time. And then I bought their album Cleansing. So there's some really good songs. So they played 23 songs, I think, in total at the Glasgow show. And as I say, I've only got that Cleansing album, but there's some really good ones on it, such as Whose Fist Is This Anyway? And Snap Your Fingers, Snap Your Neck. Okay, next up was the Mission District, and that was at King Tut's, and it was only 6 quid to get in. So they were a Canadian indie pop band, and this was my choice. I dragged Andy along to this, so I quite like a bit of pop punk. And I'd heard there was one of the songs that was called So Over You. It was just like a wee catchy, cheesy number. I do remember going to the King Tut's, and it was like absolutely style, just heaving with women. So probably not the worst idea that I had. Okay, next up was Papa Roach at the O2 Academy, now Carling, and it was £16.50 to get in. So this was obviously promoting their album Metamorphosis, so it must have been the Metamorphosis tour. I can't actually find the name of the tour. But they played 21 songs in total. They played 9 off of the new album, and they played 4 off of Infest. So you had good songs on it, like Lifeline was the third one that they actually played in the night. We also had She Loves Me Not, which was the only one from Love, Hate, Tragedy that they did. And we had Dead Cell, we had Scars, which went down well, everyone's singing along, and Forever, I really liked that one as well. Some of these slower ones were pretty good. And then they went off on Between Angels and Insects, and then they came back on for an encore with 3 songs, finishing up with Last Resort.
And listen, if you knock them down, pick them up and knock them down, and pick them up and knock them down. This one is a heavy metal song called Into the Light. This is a warning.
Okay, next up was Blackstone Cherry, and that was at the Barrowlands, and it was £15 to get in. So this was the first time that I saw Blackstone Cherry in their own right as a main eventer. I'd obviously saw them the year before when they supported Def Leppard and Whitesnake. So this was good. They did 18 songs in total. They did 8 songs from Folklore and Superstition, and they did 6 from Blackstone Cherry, and then there was a few covers in there. So they started well. It opened up with Rain Wizard, which is always a good one. And for me though, the standout ones were like the slow ones. They went over really well, I think, and his voice really stood out. So the likes of Blind Man, Please Come In, and Lonely Train was good. And then they went off and they came back on and did 3 more songs. I think they did Things My Father Said, and then finished with a cover of Jimi Hendrix's Voodoo Child. So yeah, really good gig, sounded great, and they played 18 songs, which is a lot more than they do these days.
Sound awesome.
Okay, so now to this gig, and it was Shinedown at the O2 Academy, and this was only £12 to get in. God, I wish we had those prices again. You'd be lucky to get a beer for that nowadays. So I actually remember this night for a couple of things. So this was the night of a big boxing match. It was David Hay fighting this, I think it was a big Russian guy, Valuev. And there was 3 of us were at my house beforehand. We watched some of like the opening fights, and then we were recording the main event. We thought, right, we'll go to the gig, we'll probably find out who wins, but we'll come back and watch it anyway. But no, nobody said anything. We never heard anything. And yeah, the first band on were actually Soil. So that was the first time that I would see Soil live. I'd obviously heard like some of their songs before. And they played 10 tracks and they finished with Halo. I just remember Colin that was with me, he was like that. He said, what was that last song? That was amazing. I was like, Halo. And yeah, it'd be a staple of theirs, wouldn't it be, that they play that last at most of the gigs. So then to the main event, so this was also the first time I would see Shinedown as well, and they did 14 songs, and this was in support of the Sound of Madness album. So they did 8 songs from that album, and yeah, Brent's voice didn't disappoint. He was superb. So I remember, I think he had quite long hair, and he was talking to the audience. God, he can talk. I mean, well, obviously I can talk. I'm talking for these videos for a good length of time, but he talks so much in between the songs. That's the one criticism, if you like, that I would have of him. Like, if he didn't talk for so long, you could get another 2 or 3 songs. But it just depends. I mean, some people might like that. I know Steel Panther talk a lot in between, but that's quite humorous, whereas he's just talking nonsense. But anyway, from the songs, they did If You Only Knew, I Dare You, Crow and the Butterfly was good, and then they came on for an encore of Second Chance and finished with Devour.
Yesterday was over. I put all your books on the top shelf, even the one with the four-leaf clover.
Okay, next up was Guns to Roses. And that was at Ivory Blacks and it was £10. So I think I'd seen these guys before. I couldn't find any footage for this one, but they are actually playing later on this year, playing in a couple of months in Glasgow, so I'm tempted to go and see that. They still look quite young, so they must have been like early 20s when I saw them, judging by their looks. Okay, so the last gig of the year that I went to, although not the last one that I'm going to talk about, was WASP. And that was at the garage in Glasgow, and it was £16.50. So this was as part of the Beast of Babylon World Tour, and they did 14 songs. And again, I've said this before, when I saw WASP, like the older songs are the ones that I like best. They were the ones that I got into when I first heard them. So the likes of Love Machine and Wild Child, and then Chainsaw Charlie, and then the sing-along I Wanna Be Somebody. So that's kind of what they finished with. That was the 12th song, that I Wanna Be Somebody. And then they came back on and did two more, finishing up like they normally do with Blind in Texas, and Blackie giving it a Glasgow, I'm blind in Texas.
I'd like to apologize to you all tonight. I've got the flu pretty bad, and I feel like I'm ripping everybody off up here.
Okay, so now to the last gig which I'll talk about, and this was AC/DC, and this was at Hampden Park, and it cost me £55 for that ticket, which at the time was the most amount of money that I'd ever paid for a gig ticket, and I think that remained like that until 2017, when I paid about 96 quid to go and see Metallica. So anyway, this was as part of their Black Ice tour, so they released the album the year before. So they did 21 songs on the night, which is pretty good value. 5 of those featured from Black Ice. So the first song, if I remember right, was Rock and Roll Train, and they had like a big screen up behind the main stage, graphics, and I'm sure it featured like a train chundering along and like coming off the rails, and then it burst into flames and kicked into Rock and Roll Train. And yeah, they belted out like hit after hit, all the ones that you'd want to hear. So Back in Black actually featured quite early on in the set. I think that was to get the crowd into it. I think it was the third song that they played. And also you had Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. That's not easy to say. Thunderstruck as well, that featured quite early on. And then you had the likes of Shoot to Thrill, Dog Eat Dog, You Shook Me All Night Long, TNT, Whole Lot of Rosie, just hit after hit, and you could noticeably see it getting darker. So this gig, the gates were at 4 o'clock. I'm not sure what time AC/DC came on stage or who the support band was for the gig, so if you were at it, like let me know. So I did a half day at work, and I'd been in the pub like most of the afternoon before we got to the stadium, so I'd had quite a few in me, and I just remember my view wasn't the best. I was in like the traditional old Celtic end, like behind the goal, and the way the stage was set up, it was in the north stand, so my view was kind of like side on, and it was quite far away because Hampden's just a shithole of a stadium, just terrible. Anyway, it got quite dark. I do remember by the time that they finished their set, and they came on, they did an encore with a few songs, one of them being Highway to Hell, and then they finished up For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. I'm pretty sure they had the cannons going off for that. So yeah, that was good, and that would be the first time that I saw AC/DC. I caught a bit of them the following year at Download, but more about that in the next video. Okay, so coming up in the next Relive the Music video, which will be in the year 2010, I'll be talking about albums released by Linkin Park, Iron Maiden, Bullet for My Valentine and Stone Sour, amongst others. And in the gig front, I'll be talking about seeing Lost Prophets, Limp Bizkit, Alter Bridge and also Pink for the first time. Okay, I just want to finish by saying a big thank you to any new viewers who might have been watching today. I know I picked up about 100 subscribers just in the back of that Iron Maiden review alone, so I'm nearly at the 2,000 mark, which is really good, and hopefully you enjoyed this content, and if you've missed any of the other ones you can go back in the playlist and catch it. So a big thank you to the other viewers that I know regularly watch these, so that's Ian C666, Stephen Blake, Good Guy Chucky, Tony's Travels, Glasgow Harley Rider, in 1986 Slippy and City Build Minecraft. So like I say in most of these, if you were at any of these gigs or saw the bands on their respective tours, then let me know in the comments what you remember about the gigs and what ones you liked and what stood out for you. And if you have enjoyed the video, then if you give it a wee thumbs up, that would really help me out. And until the next time, have a great day.
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.